This is James Hendricks with the Black Sheep Reports. Today I'm going to be talking about who really funds ISIS. Apparently the mainstream media establishment would more likely attempt to have people believe such things exist, that ISIS is a lone radical Islamic group, but the blatant reality says that the U.S. has trained and funded ISIS, and without the U.S. government, ISIS would not be the threat it has become. Now, it came back in 2012 that the U.S., Turkey, and Jordan were jointly running a U.S. CIA Special Force Command training base for Syrian rebels outside of Jordanian town of Safed. Now, apparently, according to the Jordanian officials, that training wasn't meant to be used in Iraq. Now, Syrian rebels who would later join the Islamic State of Iraq, or ISIS, were trained in 2012 by the U.S. instructors working at a secret base in Jordan, according to informed Jordanian officials. Now, the officials said dozens of future ISIS members were trained at the time as part of a covert aid to the insurgent targeting the regime of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Now, the officials said that the training was not meant to be used for any further campaign in Iraq. So, future ISIS members were specially trained by the U.S. government, huh? Yeah, don't say. But they were supposed to be used for... They wasn't supposed to be used for campaigns in Iraq. Well, oops, that didn't work out. This was at least superficial, so they could wage war against Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. And again, they weren't called ISIS at the time. They were referred to as Syrian rebels. But the government won't even admit they've done here. Instead, they're just bombing Iraq for hoping for the best. Meanwhile, our government is still funding the Syrian rebels today. These are the same Syrian rebels who killed a Syrian soldier and ate their heart live on camera. But back in the end of June of last year, Obama was requesting another $500 million in aid for them, even though the fact that many were calling themselves ISIS was so blatant. Need more proof? Well, here's a clip of the butcher of Benghazi, Hillary Clinton, who openly admitted that we funded radicals at the time, the Mujahideen, to overthrow the Soviet Union. This is the same tactic that is used to overthrow Saddam in Iraq, Gaddafi in Libya, and now trying to do this with Bashar al-Assad. Let's watch the clip.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these Mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated, they lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. So we then left Pakistan. We said, okay, fine, you deal with the stingers that we've left all over your country. You deal with the mines that are along the border. And by the way, we don't want to have anything to do with you. In fact, we're sanctioning you. So we stopped dealing with the Pakistani military and with ISI, and we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
Now, here's the real reason the West funds terrorism. It's simply about overthrowing leadership in countries and taking their resources. General Wesley Clark talks about after 9/11 that he got plans to take 7 countries out in 5 years. The countries he named was Iraq, then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. Now, like he said in the video, if it wasn't for the oil in the Middle East, we wouldn't be involved. It would simply be like Africa. And let's take a look at some of these countries he named. Libya, we overthrew Gaddafi. Iraq, Saddam was overthrown. Now they're trying to overthrow Syria with Bashar al-Assad. That's 3 out of the 7 countries right there. And of course, as you see, it's taken way longer than 5 years. But this is definitely something we need to be aware about. Let's take a look at the clip.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." So I came back to see him a few weeks later. And by that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
So go through the countries again.
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
Thank you all for watching. This has been James Hendricks with the Black Sheep Reports. Subscribe if you're new. Links are below. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook. Our page is Media on 9/11. Thank you very much.